Okay, so we were talking about identity theft. So identity theft is the fastest growing form of fraud in the United States. Did y'all know that? Okay, it's most prevalent among your age group. Well, actually from 7 years old and up until your teenage years. Why?
Because you don't use your social security number.
You don't use your social security number, and also, if you're younger people, they don't think they're as knowledgeable. They're not checking their credit report. They don't think they understand as much about finances, so it's easier. They're an easier target. But why do you think it's the fastest growing form of fraud?
It's the easiest.
It's the easiest because it's pretty easy to get somebody's social security number nowadays, right? It happens all the time. You can, steal it from a mailbox maybe, get somebody to give it to you, all kinds of different ways. So I think the internet and, when you're ordering things online, it's just made identity theft easier. So it has a lot of impacts on people, which misuse of an existing credit account, which causes increased credit balance. So if you are a victim of identity theft, then somebody is getting credit in your name. They're getting credit cards and they're charging them up, and sometimes they're not even paying them off. So what happens is it ruins your credit, right? So you have to spend all this time trying to fix it. So they can also use personal information to open new accounts. So what they do is they use your social security number, but their name. And if they don't, so it's really hard for, credit card companies, they want to give people credit cards because that's how they make their money. So they don't go in and really check that much, so they give them a credit card. People have bought houses. So there's a lot of victims of identity theft out there. So some of the ways it can be perpetrated is by shoulder surfing. So that's, just hanging around and listening to you give somebody your social security number, or looking over your shoulder when you're filling out something that requires your social security number. Dumpster diving. Y'all know what that is, right? Getting in people's trash, trying to find something, a credit card statement, or something that might be able to have them steal your information. Spamming, sending bogus emails, so this would be like they send you an email that says, this is Bank of America and I need some I'm just trying to verify your information. And it looks legitimate, it looks like a real email from Bank of America in order to give you a better rate on your credit card or something like that. So then so they're going to ask you for your, some information. So be careful, because probably none of those financial institutions like that will send you emails. They really won't. They may call you on the phone, but they probably will never ask you for your social security number over the phone. So never do that. Never put your social security number on an email or over the phone. Give it to someone over the phone. So some tips: being careful about giving out your personal information. Be careful about it. Most people today are a little paranoid about giving out personal information, right? Because it's so prevalent now. There's so much going on that a lot of people are very leery about giving out their social security number. You need to check your financial information regularly. Make sure that you keep up with your credit. If you have credit cards, make sure you keep up with the balances. Check your credit report. In our financial math class, we're going to all check our credit report so we can make sure that we don't, you guys should not have anything on your credit report. So if you do, it's probably not a good thing. Don't throw away receipts and statements just in the trash, because someone, if they're dumpster diving, might get it. So a lot of people shred everything. Okay, so that is identity theft. So now we're going to start on financial frauds. So for financial frauds, there's a lot of them. There's what's called a 419 fraud, a Nigerian letter. Y'all probably heard of that, right? A Nigerian letter. You may have gotten one, I don't know. And then banking fraud, utilities fraud, government documents fraud, insurance fraud, and telemarketing fraud. All of these are types of fraud in the financial world. So a 419 fraud involves an individual receiving a letter or an email, usually it's an email, from a supposed government official, royal family member, extremely wealthy widow, which promises the person that's getting it a percentage of a large sum of money if they can help the official get the money out of the country. And many people have fallen for this. When I was at the bank, there was smart people that came in that thought that they were going to get a lot of money because, you know, they sound very legitimate. They rely on convincing willing victims to freely give out their personal information. So they're trying to get their personal information. If you fall for that, do you get that percentage of the money?
No.
No, you never do. So the 419 fraud, its Nigerian letter was named after a section 419 of the Nigerian Criminal Code. And it's not always just a Nigerian one. I mean, that's where it started, but now you might get them from other places as well, all foreign countries. They're dangerous, right? You don't want to give anybody, any foreign person, your number, your information. So some tips to avoid these type frauds: don't respond to it. Don't respond to it. And you all know that. If you get it, don't respond to it, right? Be skeptical of individuals representing themselves as wealthy government officials. Because if you're a wealthy government official, why would you be emailing me? Right? That doesn't even make sense. So if they're royal and they should have better connections than you and I, right? So be skeptical of that. Not believing the promise of large sums of money for your cooperation. And guard your account information. Always guard your account information and your personal information. Okay, so bank fraud. A lot of bank fraud. It's obtaining property or money which doesn't belong to you from a federally insured financial institution. This could be robbing the bank, right? That would be bank fraud. It can result in up to 30 years in prison and $1 million in fines. So, you know, that's a federal offense. Anything to do with the bank is a federal offense. Anything to do with the U.S. mail is a federal offense. And you tend to get more jail time for some of those kind of things. It's a different jail, but you do tend to get punished severely. So some types of bank fraud would be forgery, check kiting, phishing, check cashing, and credit card fraud. Credit card fraud is the most prevalent now. Newer technology has prevented forgery and check kiting, in some situations even check cashing. But you all know what forgery is, right?
Yeah.
Who knows what forgery is? Some of you have probably committed it by signing your parents' name, right?
Hey, she didn't sign it. I gotta sign it myself.
Somebody, you probably have. But forgery is signing somebody else's name. So you're making a check from a false account, someone's account, or signing a blank check from a real account. Altered checks, changing the amount on the check. So all of these are examples of forgery. You know, like if maybe the amount, if somebody writes you a check, and people don't write checks as much anymore, so that's why it's not as common. But if I write Adam a check for $10, and you just add 2 zeros to it, it becomes 1,000, right? Okay, so that would be forgery.
I thought it was a tad much. That would be too suspicious.
Yeah, and I probably wouldn't have that much money in my account, so it would probably bounce anyway. So you better just do it for the 100. Maybe I might be able to cover that. Okay, check kiting. Check kiting, that was, when I was at the bank, that was something that was that the bank had to be very careful about. Not so much now because people don't use checks like they used to. Now you have apps on your phone where you don't even have to go to the bank to make a deposit, right? You just put the app over the check and voila, it's in your account. But years ago, they didn't have that. So check kiting is when you open an account at we'll say you open an account at Bank of America. Then you go and you open an account at Wells Fargo. So you write a check where you don't have enough money, and you don't have the money. You write a check for $100, but you only have $90 in the account at Bank of America. But you go ahead and write a check for $100 and deposit it into your account at Wells Fargo. Because checks, it takes a while for them to clear. So then you write a check at Wells Fargo for $200 and deposit it into your account at Bank of America. So there's never any money, but you're keeping up with going back and forth, and sometimes they would have 3 banks going back and forth, and you never really had the money. You're just writing a check from funds you don't have, put it in that account, and before that check clears that bank, then you've deposited in the other bank. So check kiting, it was hard to catch. We caught a lot of people check kiting, but it was very difficult to catch. And then check cashing involves the scammer sending an individual a false check and then having the victim wire money in return. This was a popular fraud recently, well, in the last several years. So you would get a check in the mail, right, and it would look like a legitimate check. Everything looks legitimate, and it says, you will get this amount of money, but you have to go down to the wire transfer place, Western Union, and wire a percentage of the money. So people did this. They did this all the time. They would get that check, and then after they wired a part of it, they still have the check, so they can go take it to the bank and get that money. So you might get a check for $5,000, and they're telling you, go wire me 10%, and then you'll be able to cash the check. So 10% is what? $500. So you send them $500, then you take the check to the bank, and the check's no good. So you've lost $500. So how checks manufacturers guard against fraud is they use watermarks. The pantograph, it voids it with patterns in the check, and there's a chemical void technique that they use. Checks, and technology has made it easier to make fake checks now, so it's a good deal that people don't use checks, because used to you couldn't just print a check out, but now it's easier to do that with all kinds of software. They also use high resolution micro printing, three-dimensional reflective holostripe, and security inks. So that security inks prevents, changing the dollar amount or the payee. And then phishing. Phishing is something that happens a lot. Works by sending forged emails impersonating an online bank, auction, or payment site. It directs the user to a forged website which looks legitimate and requires the user to update their personal information, thus stealing any information the user provides. So this is a precursor to identity theft, because they're trying to get your information. So you would get an email and it was saying, it's going to take you to a legitimate looking website, and they may copy somebody else's website, and it's asking you to put in your information. A lot of people fall for that. Credit card fraud, the most common type of fraud, because it's easier. People don't write checks anymore, so now we all use plastic, right? Everybody uses a debit card or a credit card. So thieves have figured out a way to commit fraud with credit cards. So they trick a business into releasing merchandise, and it's somebody else's credit card. And what happens in that situation is it causes the credit card of another person to be charged for the purchase. So if you don't watch your statement right, you may not know it. But if you get your statement, and my husband gets the Bank of America statement, and he's asking me questions, did you do this? Because he makes sure that everyone is legitimate, because we've had that happen to us, where someone used our card or your number. So if you find something on there that's not yours, what should you do?
Call and get it disputed.
Yes, and what will happen? Will they give you the money back?
No, they have to go after the person that took it first, normally.
Actually, they will give you your money back. If you dispute it, they'll give you your money back, and then they'll charge it back. Say it's American Express, and I said, you know, I did not make this charge at Walmart, and I'm disputing it. They will credit your account back, and then they'll send it back to Walmart. And so then Walmart is the one that has to dispute, no, that person made it. So that's why, you know, if they ask for your driver's license and things like that. So who loses in that? Walmart, right?
Except the producer, well, yeah, the producer, marketing.
Yeah, the person that took the credit card to begin with is the one that actually loses. And a lot of people use credit, they get your credit card number, and that's what happened to us. Someone got our American, it was actually my card, and I had my card in my wallet, but somehow they got my number and they ordered $2,000 worth of iPhones on,
Dang.
yeah, on, from AT&T, I think. You can buy phones from AT&T, right? I think it was from AT&T, yeah. So, and I had my card the whole time. So somehow somebody got my number, and so, you know, it took a long time, but of course we didn't have to pay for the iPhones. You know, they credited us back and that kind of thing. But you think that person that did that, they probably still have iPhones. Well, they probably turned them off or something. I don't know how they do that. But anyway. Types of credit card fraud, stolen card fraud, so somebody actually steals your card, right? You leave it somewhere, somebody steals it. Credit card mail order fraud, you know, they're getting a fake card in the mail. They're getting a card that's they're stealing your card out of the mail. And how about skimming? You know what skimming is?
Oh, they put a thing on, like at a restaurant drive-thru, they put a thing that takes your card information.
Yes, that's skimming. Somebody, you know, you give your credit card or your debit card or whatever you're going to pay for in a restaurant, and that waitress, they take it from you, right?
They could just put a piece of paper or something over and they just kind of.
Or they just take a picture of it, you know. They got your card number, but that's skimming. Okay, stolen card fraud occurs when a cardholder loses or has their card stolen and a thief makes purchases using their card. That's pretty self-explanatory. It can cost victims thousands of dollars. It's extremely easy to do at pay-at-the-pump gas stations because you don't even go inside to do that. You steal somebody's card, right? I mean, stick it in there. It doesn't ask you for a PIN number, does it? No? Nope.
Something else that they can do at gas stations too, where they kind of, or an ATM, where they basically take a model of where you put the card in, and they put something else in there that whenever you put it in, it shows the information.
Really?
Yeah, it's like a cover, and then that's why we had stopped one time at a gas station, and the police was there. He was walking around like pulling on it.
Really?
He said, yeah, it's like a Bluetooth thing to their phone.
Mm-hmm.
You have to pull on it, and if it pulls off, then take it and turn it to the police.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow. So that's even something different, right? So, you know, I don't know why these people just don't get a real job. Because they're spending a whole lot of time trying to defraud everybody else, but okay.
It's too easy doing that.
It's what?
It's too easy.
It's too easy? But you know what? You eventually get caught. Everybody eventually gets caught. But, you know, not before a lot of people are hurt in the meantime. So it can be insured by purchasing theft insurance from the credit card company. I guess you can get that. And then mail order fraud is the process of using a stolen credit card number or computer-generated card number to order goods. It's known as card not present transactions, which are made by mail, telephone, or the internet. So if you order something over the telephone, you just give them a number, right? You do it on the internet, you just put a number in. It's stolen. And then skimming is the theft of card information, credit card information by a dishonest employee of a legitimate business, like Justin said, manually copying down credit card numbers from the magnetic strip. It's commonly done at restaurants where that person has your card. I mean, sometimes they're gone a long time, right? So they have time to do that. It can be completed at ATM machines if the theft has installed a camera to read credit card numbers and the PIN you enter. And actually, we were in New York a couple of years ago, and in New York they have just these little places where you walk in the door, and it's a glassed-in area, and they just have ATM machines. It's not like a bank. They have ATM machines, and so my husband went in there to get some money out of the ATM, and there was these people hanging around. And these two guys hanging around, and you couldn't get in there without your card, like your Bank of America card, because it was a Bank of America thing. So you couldn't get in there without your card. But somehow they had walked in like right behind somebody else, and they were doing something like this. They were trying to, they had put somebody's card in there, and my husband heard them talking, so he didn't even do it. And so, he reported it, and they, to Bank of America, and somehow they traced it back, and there was somebody trying to do that with their cards. And it was something like that. They were trying to, they installed something and were trying to read people's cards. So tips to avoid would be signing cards as soon as they arrive. So if you get a credit card, or even, does your debit card have a place to sign on the back? Y'all have a debit card?
It doesn't.
It doesn't? But credit cards, you need to sign the back because that's your signature. So keep a record of your account numbers, expiration dates, and the address and phone number of each company. Keep an eye on your credit card during the transaction. If somebody's standing behind you trying to look at it. Save receipts to compare to your billing. Make sure that all of the ones on your bill is ones that you've made. Don't lend your card to anyone. And don't sign a blank receipt. If you sign a blank receipt, they could charge you any amount, right? Utilities fraud. Okay, that's the practice of a thief using your personal information to obtain utility accounts. So they're using your information to get gas, electricity, water, sewer, cable, and other services in their name under your information. Well, actually, it can be completed with only your name, address, and phone number, so they really don't. It's the second largest fraud committed in society. Wow. Somebody else have your cable services? In government documents fraud is the process of creating false Social Security cards. Does that happen? Yeah, false Social Security cards, marriage licenses, green cards, birth certificates in order to obtain money, goods, or services from business or government programs. And it also is usually a precursor for identity theft, Medicare or Medicaid fraud, and Social Security fraud. And there was a story that I read the other class about a mother that needed to get Medicaid for her seven-year-old. And come to find out, he had all this thing. Her 7-year-old son had all these things on his credit report because they had stolen his identity. And so she had all this trouble getting Medicaid that she had to clear up all that first. Security fraud is highly illegal. It's highly illegal. Government documents. Again, that's government. That's federal. They don't play.
Isn't all type of fraud highly illegal?
Do what?
Isn't all type of fraud highly illegal?
Tell me. Take your mask
Isn't all
off.
type of fraud highly illegal?
Mail fraud? What'd you say?
Isn't all type of fraud highly illegal?
It is highly illegal. You're right. But the government, they don't play with you. I mean, they will prosecute if it's anything federal. And anything to do with the mail, banks, government is a federal crime. Insurance fraud occurs when someone intentionally deceives another about an insurance matter to receive money or other benefits not rightfully theirs. This also is considered white-collar crime. Why is it white-collar crime? What do you think? Nobody gets murdered, right? Okay. So white-collar crime. That would be like you burn your truck down because you want a new one. Right? Okay, it includes falsifying theft reports, arson. So you say that something was stolen and it really wasn't. There was a person years ago in my community that reported a car stolen and they buried it in the backyard. It's a true story.
I know quite a bit of stuff that's been done that way.
So insurance fraud, a lot of people do commit that. Arson, you know, arson is setting fire to something, right? Staged auto accidents, slip and fall. You know, somebody slips in Walmart and then they sue Walmart, or they get their insurance to say, they sue Walmart and insurance pays for them. Phantom repairs and estimations, owning multiple policies. I mean, if you watch TV, you hear all the time about, you know, cashing in on insurance fraudulently. So insurance fraud. Telemarketing fraud. Who gets calls from telemarketers? Everybody does. Even if you say no call, you still get them. And used to, they're smarter now. They used to, it would be like a strange number, so I wouldn't even answer it because it would be like an 814 number. Now they make it look like somebody you might know, like from your town, and then it's, you know, somebody trying to sell you a security system or get you out of college debt or something like that.
Car insurance.
What?
Car insurance.
You get them for car insurance? Do you have a car?
No.
So why would they tell them? So it doesn't make sense, does it? No, they don't know who they're calling. It's typically completed by individuals who are calling for donations to a cause. So sometimes they may call you and want you to donate to the police fund and some of it's legitimate. You just have to be really careful when you're doing things like that over the phone. So what about GoFundMe accounts? Are those legit?
Sometimes.
You think?
Depends.
Wouldn't that be a good way to, how did you know? How do you know where the money's going?
Yeah.
You don't. So I would be careful with those. Tips for avoiding telemarketing fraud: not buying from an unfamiliar company. Just know who you're buying things from. Research. Always ask for written material about a company or charity. Check out the Better Business Bureau. You can do that online. There's other sites you can check out that company to make sure they're legit before you buy anything. Not paying in advance for services offered over the phone. That's a big red flag. If they're asking you to pay up front and then deliver whatever it is, you know, the service or whatever, I would be careful. Don't give out personal information. Never give out personal information over the phone. Okay.